Hello everyone, I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Allison.
And this is Nerd of the Week, a randomly generated fandom podcast. Generator, would you like to remind everyone what the word of the podcast is?
The word of the week is galaxy.
Galaxy.
Galaxy, more space things.
More space. There's always more space.
There's always more space and more space content. And if we could talk...
The universe is always expanding.
And
so there's always more.
Always. Got a little existential there for a second. I'm over here just like, please make more space things so that I can consume more space media. Because
space will consume you.
Probably. This is a true statement.
All right, we are less than a minute in, and I have already brought the existential crisis in. Cool.
Yeah.
I hope usually we don't bring in existential crises.
We usually have like some sort of existential ennui at some point in the podcast.
That's true.
So every other Saturday, come listen to two idiots talk about their favorite media and somehow get existential. It's fine. Our podcast in a nutshell. Changing gears, what do you think Google defines galaxy as?
A relatively local cluster of stars centered around a central gravitational pull of some sort. Or at least that's my definition of a galaxy. I don't know if it's Google's.
Google is saying it's a noun and is a system of millions or billions of stars together with gas and dust held together by gravitational attraction.
Whoa. I was surprisingly close.
Yeah, you're really quite close.
Nice. I have a better understanding of galaxies than I thought I did.
The other like extra little definition that they add is like a large group of impressive people or things, like a galaxy of people, which I've never
heard that. Is it like a flock of seagulls or a murder of crows? It's a galaxy of people?
They actually use a galaxy of stars, but they mean it in the context. Here's the whole sentence, like the example sentence. It's the four musicians have played with a galaxy of stars, like a huge or a multitude amount of people.
But I don't think that's a definition. I think that's just a metaphor.
Right. I agree. This is Google. You're wrong.
Take that, Google.
Hot take from Nerd of the Week.
Everything you read on Google is wrong. Well, that's going to make the rest of this podcast kind of hard to do because I got a lot of information from Google today.
Oh, that's true. Well, it's fine. We never claimed to be accurate. We just claimed to hopefully be mildly entertaining.
That's true. Well, all right. Well, I'm going to try and entertain you. Hopefully It will make sense.
I am ready.
The thing I'm bringing today, I have not read since I was in like middle school. Okay. So A, it made quite an impression on me that I am still remembering as much as I do. Mm-hmm. And B, I probably don't remember as much as I should. So take that all with a grain of salt.
No worries. We never claim to be accurate here.
All right. So what I am bringing is a book, specifically the third book from the Young Wizards series called High Wizardry.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of any of this?
No, I have not.
Okay, it's a shame, but expected.
Okay, understood.
So the Young Wizard series, I feel like flew so under the radar, but it was like one of my absolute favorite book series when I was growing up. Mm-hmm. It started in like the 80s, but the author was still putting out books like into the early 2000s.
Oh, wow, okay.
And she actually admitted herself, she's like, the timeline in these books is absolutely messed up. And like, it doesn't make sense because in some of the books, I say that the characters have only aged like 3 years, but in others of the books, it's like one of them has been practicing magic for like 6 years. It's like ridiculous time frame here. And there should not be time jumps. Like, that's not part of it.
Uh-huh.
So She actually slightly rewrote all of the books and re-released them under the Young Wizards New Millennium series.
I love that.
And it basically is just like time corrected and like updated terminology. So like instead of using Walkmans, they're actually like using iPads or iPods.
I like that though.
Yeah.
Which iPods aren't even updated terminology anymore. I don't think anyone has an iPod.
Well, this was in 2008, so
Okay.
that's where that came from.
Okay.
I like this series of books because it's magic, but also science fiction.
Sure.
And they like try and explain magic through science, kind of.
Okay. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, so it's, I think, more up my alley. I don't know. That's not to say like things like Harry Potter are not up my alley. I like that kind of magic too. Mm-hmm. But this is just like more
You
riveting.
seem to like things when it's more of like a defined rule or like a there's not like just an ambiguous, you just innately have it. It's like a here's the logic behind it.
Exactly. And this had a lot of logic in it. So, as I said, I will be focusing primarily on the third book. We'll get to that in a moment. But I'll kind of give a groundwork for a little bit of it first.
All right, fair enough.
So, in the first book, it's called So You Want to Be a Wizard, which is a charming title.
I remember looking at the title of this book. Okay. I know I haven't read them, but I remember seeing that book like in the school library.
It's a great book. And honestly, I'm considering repurchasing them all because when I went to undergrad, I stupidly donated them all because I'm like, these are children's books. I won't need them anymore. Mm-hmm. Dumb. Now I can't reread them, and I want to. So I think I'm going to just go and purchase them all again.
Fair enough.
Anyway, so first book is So You Want to Be a Wizard. Basically, it's these two kids who didn't really know each other before, but they kind of like come together for their adventure. One of them's name is Nita, and the other is Kit, who is short for Christopher. They live in kind of a suburb of New York City, and they basically find this old book at the library.
Okay.
Or maybe it's at an old bookstore. Wait, hold on. My gosh. See, I should have looked into this more before I brought it. I'm so sorry.
You're okay.
Nita finds hers at the library. Kit finds his at an old bookstore. There we go.
Got it.
Two
Okay.
separate findings. Mm-hmm. And basically the book is titled, So You Want to Be a Wizard. And they're like, some dumb children's book. But like Nita finds hers because she's like running her fingers along the spines of the books. And this one, like, it's described as it like jumps out and bites her. But like kind of, it just like catches her finger on like a piece of the book cover or something like that.
Okay.
So she pulls it out and she's like, it's meant to be. And like something inspires her to take this, what she thinks is a children's book, home.
Sure.
And the first page has the Wizard's Oath. And the thing about the Wizard's Oath that they bring up many times throughout the series is it's kind of written like the Hippocratic Oath. That's like, you shall not do any harm. You shall like ease suffering, things like that. But it's like a magic version of that, essentially.
Oh, I like that. Okay.
Yeah. So she like reads the oath. Just, what are you going to do? You got a book. You got to read what it says.
Right.
Little does she know that by reading that, she's like signed into a contract to become a wizard.
That's a little bit of entrapment, but that's fine.
So she like kind of continues reading the book, and it's telling her like, here's how you do magic. Here's how you do your first spell. You need a wizard circle, and here's how you write your name with magic, and you'll need a wand and these materials. And like it all still kind of sounds like, here's a fun thing a child can do and pretend they're doing magic. But she like tries to do all these things and like actually casts a spell.
Oh.
And somehow it like attracts the attention of something that should not have had the attention attracted. Okay. And also Kit just happened to be in the area. He had also like read the Wizard's Oath from his little book. So they're both wizards. They're both like fighting against this unknown presence. And then they get like saved by someone. And I'm so sorry, this gets really fuzzy. All the more reason for someone else to go read the books so they can figure out exactly what I'm not telling you. But
saved by some mysterious person.
Yeah, mysterious person of benevolent meaning.
Understood.
But anyway, then the whole first book is the rest of them just like kind of learning about magic and learning about their powers. And apparently every young wizard has to go through this like kind of training period, or like to basically to like make sure that this is what they actually want to do, and if they decide they don't want to do this, they can actually back out.
Oh, okay.
Or they can fail and they can die.
Oh, that's
Or they can
less
succeed
ideal.
and decide they want to continue being a wizard and then go on to have more quests. So
okay.
kind of 3 options there.
You can die, you can drop out, or you can be a wizard. Got it.
Yeah. You know, the
fine.
3 standard options.
3 usual things.
Yeah.
The choice that every young one gets in life.
So they go forward with the ordeal. They like get into this secret passageway in the subways of New York, and there's like this incarnation essentially of this specific evil presence in the universe.
Okay.
It's referred to over all of the books as the Lone One or the Lone Power.
Okay.
And it's the author herself, which I guess I should say the author's name. It's Diane Duane. She is Irish, so I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing her name wrong, because it's a very Irish last name. She's not religious. As far as we can tell, she's an atheist, but basically the whole story is like, in the beginning, there were the powers that be that created the entire universe and all of the magic within it.
Okay.
But then there was one power, the lone power, who decided that he wanted to have another gift for creation, which was death. But he makes it like, he wraps it up in a nice little package, like, oh, you'll get this extra benefit if you accept my gift. And basically all of the first civilizations had to say like, no, we don't want your gift, or yes, we do. But like, he was so crafty that sometimes even if they said they didn't want his gift, they still suffer because of it. So it's like,
okay.
very like, has
Trickster
those
Gotti.
weird religious undertones, but it's totally not what she meant. Or
Sure.
maybe it was, I don't know.
I mean, she's probably influenced by just, everything in the world too.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
like usual fantasy, regardless of what thing you're pulling from, there's usually like a good deity and a bad deity, or a good power and a bad power. So
Yeah.
it happens.
Yeah. So the Lone One is like omnipotent throughout the universe and has all these different avatars and incarnations, and the one that Nita and Kit fight for their ordeal is in the shape of a dragon that lives under the New York subway.
I love that image. That's amazing.
And also they befriend this tiny white hole. Like, he's a sentient white hole, which is different than a black hole, but it's
okay,
he's
like
a star basically.
Okay.
But he's a sentient star, and he's like kind of small, like a little like puffball that they can kind of carry around. And his name is Fred.
Yes.
And
oh my God.
he loves human culture, and he's just like so excited about like comic books and things like that. And then in the end of the ordeal, he basically sacrifices himself by like blowing himself up so that they can kill this dragon.
We stand Fred, and we just met him.
Yes. Yes, Fred is a good boy. Fred is the best boy.
Oh.
So anyway, that's the first book. They learn about wizardry. They succeed in their ordeal. They don't die, and they decide, yeah, we got to keep doing this. We got to save the universe. Now, they are not the only wizards. There's thousands of wizards all across the Earth and all of the other planets that have sentient life forms. Like, there are wizards everywhere. And the wizards all know about each other, and they can talk to each other and communicate with each other and go visit other planets, and it's crazy.
Okay, cool.
There's even wizards who are not humans on Earth. Like in the second book, it's called Deep Wizardry. Basically, on summer vacation, Nita's family goes away to the beach, and like she and Kit are best friends, so Kit gets to come along as well. Nice plot device there. And basically, they find this beached whale who is dying, and they're like, we have to save her. So they do, but in order to like save her and bring her back to life, somehow like she and Nita like end up sharing blood or something like that. Kind of like a weird ritual sacrifice.
It's fine.
So then like...
As you do on your vacations.
Right. So now they're like magical sisters in blood, Nita and this whale. The whale is also a wizard. And
I would assume. I would expect nothing less.
Exactly. And they have to basically go on this quest to the Mariana Trench and defeat whatever avatar of the dark power is there.
Isn't that like the deepest trench in the ocean?
Yeah, it is.
Got it. Okay.
But I guess, spoiler alert, it's kind of a little bit like Fellowship of the Rings, where there's like a bunch of people who are bunch of beings who are going down there. Like there's a seal and a shark and another whale, and then the wizard whale that we first met, whose name is Sree. S''REE. Sree. Anyway, so they're going down there and then looking for the Avatar in the trench, but it's not actually down there. It was with them all along. It was in the shape of the shark that was with them.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah, kind of like in Lord of the Rings, where Boromir tries to steal the ring and betrays the party and then dies.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Yes. I will talk about Lord of the Rings some other time. It's not for today. So anyway, that was the second book. Mm-hmm. Also in that book, like, in order to be able to go on their quest, like, they're going to be gone for a few days. So they need Nita's parents to not freak out about that. So they basically, like, tell them about magic. And how they tell them about magic is they teleport them to the moon.
Oh, maybe start with, hey, Mom, I got to show you something. And then teleport them like 10 feet to the left first. I feel like jumping immediately to the moon is a little alarming.
If I'm remembering correctly, I think there were some steps leading up to it. I think
so.
First they do a spell that lets them... It's basically like Dungeons and Dragons water walk, where they just are able to walk on the water and not sink in.
Okay.
It's firm ground. Mm-hmm. And I think then they make something levitate, and their parents are still this is all tricks.
Okay.
And then take them to the moon after that.
All right,
and
I can see how you get to the moon from there. I got you now. This seems less extreme.
So anyway, I guess going to the moon and looking at Earth makes the parents understand, like, oh my gosh, yeah, my daughter is part of something bigger. Of course I'll let her travel to the depths of the oceans with a whale.
Only for 3 days, though. It'll be fine.
Right. So that's how that works. Now finally we get to the third book, called High Wizardry.
Okay.
Nita, she's had a little sister this whole time, but this is where the little sister finally comes into play. Her name is Dareen. Again, kind of an Irish name. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. I'm sorry if I'm not. So she's a few years younger than Nita is, and she wasn't necessarily part of the whole, like, hey parents, I'm a wizard kind of talk, but I think she was, like, listening in at the door.
As younger siblings are wont to do.
Yes. So she, like, kind of knows what's going on, but, like, not exactly. Mm-hmm. But she's kind of a little brat, but she also, like, really looks up to Nita and wants to be like her. And also she made a promise to herself. Back in the day when they were really young, Nita was bullied because she was too much of a nerd.
Mood.
And so Dareen decided that she was going to be a nerd as well, but even smarter than Nita, so that she could outwit the bullies and protect her older sister, which is, like, so cute. So she's really a know-it-all and really unbearable, but also, like, has good intentions in her heart, essentially. Mm-hmm. So this is kind of around the time where household computers were becoming a thing. When was this book actually written? I don't remember when it first came out. But anyway, her family is getting a fancy Mac computer. Not even like a MacBook, but like one of those big, like, bubble Apple computers. You know, the ones that, like, had, like, the see-through clear back part of them? They were, like, shaped like a little balloon almost. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So they're getting one of those. And it's, like, the first time they've ever had a computer in the house. So Dareen, she already knows how to use computers because she was in a computer class at school. Her parents have no idea how to set this thing up. And so she's just like, I'll do it, don't worry. So they're like, okay, fine. You take the computer and the manuals, and, like, before they even, like, say that, she's already had the thing turned on.
That's basically how my brother got our computer in our house. My parents are nerdy and, like, super into it, and, like, we're always about the most latest technology. Sorry, random sidebar, but, like, exactly how it happened would be, like, my brother would be like, all right, and he's, like, 5 and has the whole computer set up ready to go.
Mm-hmm. Is your brother a wizard?
He might be.
Are you a wizard?
I am not. However, that does not mean my brother isn't.
That's what a real wizard would say.
You're right. You got me.
Anyway, so she's got the computer all set up, and you know how like computers go through a little like setting up process, and they have like screens of like, here, we're doing all these tasks and installing all these things, and it's just a blue screen with text right now. So that's all going through, and like this weird like screen flashes on it that she didn't expect to see. Like it didn't have normal computer talk in it. It said something about like it was basically the Wizard's Oath but put into like computer language somehow. And she just like accepts the terms and conditions. Like, okay, I guess that must be like a weird new feature of the Mac, whatever this weird code was. Whatever.
It's fine.
So she's apparently just downloaded a beta version of Mac version of the Wizard Manual.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
The Wizard Manual is a virus. That's hilarious.
So she accidentally also became a wizard. She doesn't really know that that's happened, though. The next day, she's really weird, and she's, like, carrying around the manual with her, I think. And Kit and Nita want to take her, or I guess they wanted to go to the Science Museum in New York, and she's being forced to come along with them because she's the younger sister. Take your younger sister with you.
Yep.
Yeah. So there's this exhibition at the Science Museum about Mars, and Kit's really into Mars. He loves Mars. He wants to go to Mars.
Also mood.
I don't know why he doesn't take himself to Mars. He can go to the moon.
Right, he can teleport to the moon. Why can't you? Is the Mars too far?
It might. Oh, that actually, yes. Mars is a little far, so that might be the problem. Doreen is like not really into it. She's not really having fun with this. She wants to be home with her computer. So she's like just kind of zoning off and like thinking about the computer and like thinking about what she'd read on it. And then she like decides, I'm going to just like sneak into the bathroom and maybe they'll lose me and I can go home. Well, she opens the door to the bathroom and it's Mars.
Oh, that's fine.
Yeah. So she accidentally teleported to Mars through like this weird little world gate.
As one does.
Yeah. And she like sneakily like looks around and like Kit and Nita are nowhere to be found. So she just pops off to Mars, you know, as you do. Kit and Nita realize they've lost her, frantically go through the museum, pick up traces of magic around the bathroom, and they're like, oh my God, what's happened here? They open the door, also Mars.
At least
she's not there
At least
anymore.
hasn't gone back to a bathroom. At least it's still Mars.
Right. But they're like, we have to change this before someone else goes to Mars. Like someone who's not a wizard.
Right.
So they have to work on like shutting down the portal. Mm-hmm. But then they also have to go find Doreen somewhere in the galaxy. On the planet of Earth, there's like some superior wizard advisors. So they just happen to live in the same neighborhood as Kit and Nita. And they're like, we got to go talk to Tom and Carl. We got to figure out what to do. So they go talking to Tom and Carl, who are like just regular adult guys. Like they have regular jobs, but also are wizards and have to advise all the wizards like in New York or something, like their local region or something.
Depressing. Like you have to have a normal job, but you are a wizard. God.
Yeah, like Carl he sells time to broadcasting companies for commercials. Like that's his day job.
That's what he chooses to do with his awesome wizard powers. Carl,
Well, his
you could do
wizard
better.
job, in addition to being a local advisor, he also sells time jumps. So, like, this came up in the first book when they were first learning about wizardry. They had to do some sort of time jump to get into the sewer, or not the sewers, under the
Dilation
subway.
nonsense. Got it.
Yeah. So he had to sell them a chunk of time for them to go and do this quest.
This guy has one thing and he's really good at it.
Yeah, he's a time lord. So anyway, they basically Tom and Carl kind of help arm Kit and Nita with like the skills and tools they need, and like here's how you should probably look about finding her, and you'll have to like look for these kind of traces of magic and things like that. Mm-hmm. Oh, and by the way, why don't you take our parrot with you?
Parrot?
Yes, they have this macaque whose name is Machu Picchu.
That's
Peach
adorable.
for short. And this macaque is like really old. It's been with them for a really long time. And there's a little aside in the book that says, wizards' pets get weirder the longer they're with the wizard. And Peach has been with them for a really long time. So she's weird.
Oh my God. And now she gets to go to Mars.
She gets to go to Mars. One of her special powers is that she's like kind of prophetic. Like she can a little bit see in the future.
Okay.
So she's kind of useful to have around, I guess.
Sure.
But basically they're like, here, you should take her with you. She knows a lot, so she'll be able to help you. She's not a wizard herself. Just weird.
It's that familiar thing where they have like magic light or like magic aware.
Gonna flash back to Doreen real quick. So she first was on Mars. She's like, this isn't far enough. But also, I don't know how long I'm going to be gone. I'm going to go on a spree around the universe. So I'm going to make a copy of myself to go back home. So this brand new wizard who has no idea what to do about magic, she makes a copy of herself to go back home.
That is how you start your villain arc, ma'am. That's not a good choice.
She also makes a copy of the computer from at home and brings the real computer with her.
She invented a laptop.
Yes. So she now has this laptop and she's cruising around the galaxy with it. So she like is able to type into code into the computer basically and say like, I want to go to the moons of Jupiter. So she goes to the moons of Jupiter, which the book says something like, this has never been done before because of the difference in gravity and like you have to know exactly the distance and like that's kind of where the science part of the magic is coming in.
So she's like a techno wizard. Okay.
Yeah. But like magic says you can teleport to wherever you want to. You just have to know the exact coordinates and like how physics works there so that you don't end up like spliced in half or something like that.
I appreciate that actually. Okay.
Yeah, so like you have to be smart about how you're using your magic. Well, she was able to figure out how to get to the moons of Jupiter and does so. However, it was so jarring of a gravity difference that she then vomits on Jupiter's moons. And it says like she was the first person to ever do so.
You're probably right.
Yeah. But she's like, it's still not far enough. Take me somewhere fun. So she like types that into her computer, like somewhere populated where there's people. And so she gets sent over to this place called the Crossings. Okay. And basically what the Crossings is, it's like a planet-wide like airport terminal basically, where it's like a hub for the galaxy of all like wizards and life forms anywhere, like they kind of go there so they can teleport to other places, and it's like
the way station. Huge, okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So she's intrigued of what she sees there. Like there's all these aliens of different types that, you know, they all look weird and amazing and miraculous. And she's just like, wow, this is the coolest thing to ever happen to me. I'm the greatest, and look at my amazing wizard skills. While she's there, there's like this army of weird, like bug-eyed aliens, is what they call them, or bug-eyed guys.
Bug-eyed guys.
Is what they actually call them. Bug-eyed guys, yeah. Who are actually like dark messengers from the Lone Power, but they start chasing after her because she has like such high innate wizard power right now. And she's like, oh no, we gotta get out of here. So she makes another jump with her computer, and they're like still chasing after her. Like they arrive right after her, and she's like, we have to do the furthest jump that we possibly can. And she like just types a random coordinate into her computer basically, and it flings her off to the other side of the universe, like so far away to somewhere that like no one has ever been or would ever think to go. And she's like, all right, we finally lost him. What's cool is that this planet that she finds herself on is completely made of silicon. So it's basically a computer chip that she's landed herself on. So she is like, I'm so lonely. I want someone to talk to. Her computer makes up a little guy for her, shaped like a weird little turtle, and he like emerges out of the silicon as like a fully sentient individual, like AI basically.
He's a little guy.
He's just a little guy. And she makes thousands of these little guys. And she's like their supreme leader and mother. And like her computer's programming them all. She's like, this is cool. All right, but I need food. So what am I going to do? And the little guys like start thinking about like, what can we do? How can we get mother food? She needs food. Meanwhile, back to Kit and Nita. So they also arrive at the crossings. They ask some passersby, what happened? They're like, we saw the little wizard girl and she was pursued by aliens and we're pretty sure they're bad news. So they're like, oh no, our little sister's going to destroy the galaxy because she has the army against her now. They basically are following her steps, and then they realize like she's made this huge jump that would have almost be impossible to do. So they have to figure out how to get to her. That takes them a while to figure out, and I don't remember exactly how they did it.
Okay.
So we'll come back to them in a second. Meanwhile, back on planet Doreen with her
turtle army,
numerous little aliens. So they're all like trying to talk to her and like figure out what she needs and how she's going to survive. And one of them suddenly says something like, well, like, does she need to survive? Like, we're here. We don't need her anymore. God. Yeah, so basically it's this uprising, a robot uprising against their own creator within the span of a few hours.
Love that for her.
It's a real problem. The real problem here is that the sentient being is another avatar for the lone one.
Okay.
And he's there because she's just created this new sentient civilization.
Sure. Okay.
And he needs to present his awful choice to them.
Got it. Okay.
Basically, this computer, it starts running these simulations of, like, what will happen if we choose one way or the other. And, like, it basically, this giant planet of a computer trying to figure out what's best for itself. It's kind of leaning towards not making not taking the offer, which, I mean, good for them, I guess.
Right.
But also they are still going to suffer, and so some of them are not convinced that that's the right choice. And Doreen is like, no, you can't say yes to this guy.
Yeah.
Come on, you gotta save me. And they're like, oh, but we don't know. You're not really one of us, are you, mother? And it's very sinister that they call her mother all the time.
Yeah. This is suddenly turning into a horror movie.
Exactly. And then there's basically the lone powers like had enough of being in this little turtle shell, and he just like kind of comes out in his full power and is fighting her and trying to like just overtly kill her. Luckily, right then, Kit and Nita have finally figured out how to get there, and they like kind of take stock of the situation and decide, okay, well, we obviously need to kill this avatar of the lone power and convince him to like leave our sister alone. Through some finagling and shenanigans, he basically is not completely killed, but he's almost like Darth Vader, kind of has a redemption right at the end of like, no, I want to be good. And also Peach the macaw, was actually an avatar for the Great Ones. Oh gosh, it's not the Great One itself. But, like, the champion of the Great One. So, like, the messenger.
That's not what I was expecting.
Yeah. So there's a reason that Peach was weird. Because, actually, this incredible power resided within her.
Yeah.
So, basically, she's able to kind of snuff out this version of the lone power. But before he dies, he says, like, you have to stop all of my other avatars across the universe because I've introduced entropy into it and it's going to consume everything and it's going to be the end of the world. And so they're like, oh no, yeah, we gotta fix that. And that was kind of like the missing piece where like all the wizards knew something was going on. Like the lone power had seemed like he was getting more and more powerful, but it's actually that he'd really put entropy into motion. And so like the universe was both expanding and contracting and like consuming itself, and already on like the edges it wasn't there anymore, and they need to basically defeat him.
Got it, okay.
But anyway, they saved Doreen, and she says, all right, I'm going to go home now, but be good while I'm gone. And basically leaves her little silicon army to basically have their own little planet. And they come back later. They actually help defeat the lone one in one of the ending books. But Doreen goes home with her little computer, who she names Spot. and then he's a character in the rest of the books. He this poor little computer, he sprouts legs and waddles around after her. He's really cute. He's also a best boy.
It's like the luggage in the Discworld series. That's amazing.
Yes it is. So they save Doreen, and she has saved a lot of the galaxy, essentially.
Hooray!
Yay! But yeah, it's a super good both book and series, and I feel like all of the books, they have very different premises. There was another one that I almost brought as well because it kind of was galaxy-ish. It's called Wizard's Holiday. Basically, Kit and Nita go on a foreign exchange program, and then Nita's parents get a bunch of alien wizards as their foreign exchange students.
Oh my gosh.
It's so funny, but I just didn't remember as much about it.
Sure.
But, they just have these wild premises, but also saving the world. It's really funny. I love them so much, and I'm definitely going to try and reread them again.
They sound delightful.
Yeah.
Definitely interesting. I remember seeing the cover for the first book, and I just never read them, but now I'm kind of sad that I haven't because they sound fun.
Yeah. I think you would like them.
I have a quote for you.
Please tell me.
All right. I protect the galaxy from the threat of invasion from the evil Emperor Zurg, sworn enemy of the Galactic Alliance.
Wow, that's a lot of words.
I guess that was a lot of words together, strung to form a sentence, if you will.
Yeah, like words tend to do.
If you know where my quote's from, go ahead and send us a message on Facebook. And if Twitter's still alive, feel free to contact us there. I don't know what's happening over there anymore, but I think people still communicate on Twitter. We also have a Instagram, YouTube. You can find us with the hashtag Nerd of the Week or hashtag
I was going to add in, we have a
NOTWP.
Spotify too, but we don't have a Spotify. That's not a thing.
I don't think you can talk to people on Spotify.
I don't think you can either.
Maybe you can. I'm gonna look into this. I'll let you know.
I don't think you can, but you can make a playlist where every one of the songs forms a sentence, basically.
That's true.
I've seen a lot of people do that for recipes.
Okay. Interesting. I haven't heard of this. I'm gonna
Look up
investigate.
Spotify playlist recipes.
I will. I'm excited now. And we have TikTok at Vampire Sheep. Sheep spelled with 3s. But if you look up hashtag Nerd of the Week, we show up that way too. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, we would.
So I am somehow weirdly also bringing a media that has a mother kind of sentient robot thing. And I just cracked up because you were bringing that up. And I'm like, this is odd that we've done this again.
It's our one weird connection.
It's our one weird connection.
That doesn't have anything to do with the actual word.
Right. So I'm bringing the movie Alien, which
Ooh,
I
spooky.
love this movie. My dog is literally named Ripley because of the main character in this movie.
Oh, really?
Yep, this is where Ripley's namesake is from.
Did not know that. Okay.
So, Alien is the 1979 sci-fi fiction horror directed by Ridley Scott, starring Tom Skerritt, Sigourney Weaver, Veronica Cartwright, Harry Dean Stanton, John Hurt, Ian Holm, and Yaphet Kotto. The film is about an alien, if you didn't guess from the title. And so it draws inspiration from Star Wars. And I believe he said that Ridley Scott said the Texas Chainsaw Massacre for the horror elements of it. And it does the horror trope of trying not to show all of the bad guy for a long time to build up that suspense and that sense of dread and foreboding. And it does a really good job. And nowadays, watching the movie, it feels campy. Have you seen this movie?
I have not.
Okay. I'm sure you've seen it parodied.
I'm sure I have.
Many, many times by this point. But when it first came out, it was a just smash success. It did really well in the box office. People liked it right away. It was spooky. A lot of things hadn't been seen before. And one of the things that they did that was not common at the time and was Sigourney Weaver, the chief safety officer, Lieutenant Ellen Ripley, is like the main character, and having a female lead in a sci-fi movie was basically unheard of at this point. So it is like one of the quintessential how the genre is defined by this is one of those movies. And
I mean, it's definitely recognizable enough.
yeah, and there's so many scenes, and then the sequels aren't as good, but they're still worth watching and enjoying. And it's just a phenomenal movie. It definitely feels campy now watching it because the special effects aren't there anymore and that kind of stuff. But honestly, I personally still think it holds up. It's a fun ride. So there's basically a big spaceship. It's more of like a freight train functionally. Like what it's doing is hauling a bunch of cargo from somewhere, not really important, back to Earth. And I think it's like a refinery for like mineral ore and like space mining. And they're bringing materials back to Earth. And the ship is called the Nostromo. And the first couple of shots are this beautiful like establishing shots of the spaceship itself, and then like all of the hallways and like the cafe area where all the stuff's being held, that kind of stuff. Like just all over the ship is just like action shots, and it's a little bit disturbing because there's nobody on there, and you get like just a line of text that's basically saying the Nostromo is making its destination back for Earth. There's a crew of 7, which I always wondered how 7 people can run a giant spaceship, but you know that's probably not super important to the plot.
I bet the spaceship runs itself a lot.
Yeah, and there is an artificial intelligence who they call Mother, and that is basically what's running everything. The journey from where they were to Earth is, I guess, supposed to take 2 years. So the office and the crew are mostly in stasis, and they get woken up like probably right at the beginning and right at the end. And we see the stasis ship open up. It's like these, basically like a pod with like 7 different sleeping sections that kind of like pop open. And that's our first introduction to all of the crew members. So we have Captain Dallas, the executive officer Kane, navigator Lambert,
These are all amazing names.
Right? Warrant officer Ripley, science officer Ash, engineers Bert and Parker. And they are, you know, waking up, they're eating their like first a meal out of stasis, they're getting their bearings, figuring out what's going on, and then they realize that they are 10 months from home and they shouldn't be awake yet. And part of the protocol of any spacefaring ship, you don't get a lot of like, are there aliens that we know of, or like what is out in space, how much do we as humans know yet? But part of the protocol is if there is a sign of life, any ship, regardless of if it's commercial or a military ship or whatever, stops to figure out what it is. And so it's implied that we haven't had a lot of contact, if any, with aliens. So it's still like in the early stages of spaceflight. So they are mostly upset. The engineers, Brett and Parker, are annoyed that they've been woken up. They're talking about trying to get a raise and more salary. And I believe it's Officer Kane who says, look, if we don't do this thing, you don't get any money, because it's literally like in the rules is written that we have to do this thing. Like, we have to go investigate. And also they're sending out, it seems like a distress signal. So we have to answer that distress signal because they could be human. Who knows? We'll find out. So they end up going to this like tiny, like rickety kind of primordial-esque planet where it's like really, really dark and has really bad atmosphere, not survivable for humans, not breathable air. And they go and they land on it. And of course, the ship, there's like an away ship that lands that hits a bunch of like rock and stuff on the way down. So then it's damaged and they're now stuck on this planet for a little while. And everyone's rightly annoyed and frustrated with the whole situation because none of them wanted to be here. And then look at this place. There's clearly no life on this planet. And the engineers are like, it's going to be at least a day before we can get this thing back up and running and get back to the Nostromo. Mm-hmm. So Dallas, Kane, and Lambert go out to see if they can figure out the source of the signal. It sounds like it's about a mile and a half. Like I think it was north of their direction of where they had like kind of crash landed. And then Ripley, Ash, and the engineer stay back to monitor repairs. The science officer kind of acts as like because they have like a higher vantage point, like trying to like give them direction and like getting feedback and kind of giving them guidance on what to do. So the away crew go and they find, and it's this like beautiful shot. I remember watching it as a kid and being like, this is what movies could be like. And it's this big derelict spacecraft that just looks alien and foreign, and it's like it kind of is like the shape of a big C. And I don't know if it's real or if it was just a painting because it was the 80s, but it's just this gorgeous shot, and spooky and foreboding and scary, but just really sets the stage and the scene of what this movie's going to be like. And so they're looking at this spaceship. They have never seen anything like it before. They're like, what is this? Like, what kind of spacecraft is this? Who was on the spacecraft? And they go inside to find the remains of like a creature that looks like he was at the helm of this spacecraft, and he had been exploded from the inside out. And they rightly get concerned because clearly something took this guy out. Mm-hmm. And so they start to like kind of move away, but Kane actually discovers a chamber filled with eggs. I think it's something like 150, 200 eggs. Ew. Just sitting there. And like an idiot, he touches them and he starts to report that they like let out this noxious gas when you touch them. And you're like, Kane, you fool. And then there's a cut of him like leaning forward, and like this inside of the egg is like just enough see-through that you can kind of see things moving. And then the face hugger that Alien's known for, you see just like a glimpse of it as it like goes and attacks his space helmet. Then we kind of go back to the away ship and the people repairing it, and Ripley is looking through the signal and trying to decipher it, and starts to realize that this isn't a distress call because it's written in binary, and Mother is trying to decipher it but isn't going fast enough, so she's trying to also read it, and she's like, this looks like some kind of warning. And Ash, the science engineer or science officer, is like, don't bother going out to get them because if it's a warning, they're going to know soon enough, which is like the most unsupportive way to be like, yeah, no, they're going to be fine or they'll die. Who knows? We'll find out. Like, it's cool. Everything's fine. And then we have Dallas and Lambert carrying back Kane to the Nostromo because they've discovered his body. The helmet's sunken in, and they are like, let us in. And Ripley's like, no, we have to follow protocol. We don't know what you've touched. Like, we need to follow quarantine. And
this seems strangely similar to what, The Thing? Was that?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Was that something that you brought a while ago, like last year?
Yeah. That was with Colors, The Thing.
Yeah.
Similar vein, of like kind of foreboding creature that murders a bunch of people. This one doesn't take over and like look like you, though. This one like truly becomes like an actual like monster towards the end of it. But yeah, and similar vibes. I have a genre of movie that I like. So Ripley is trying to be like, no, we got to follow quarantine. We got to follow safety protocols. Like, we don't know what you touched. And Ash is like, okay. And then hits the open button to let them in. And she's like, what are you doing? This is stupid. You've now condemned all of us. And he's like, you don't know that. This is fine. And they pull, now that quarantine's broken, they pull Kane into basically like their med bay. And open up his helmet to see the face hugger kind of wrapped around his face.
Yeah.
And
As its name would suggest.
And it kind of looks like those shell crab things. I don't remember what they're called, but they have like the really flat shells with like the feet underneath and then like the really long spiky tail.
Horseshoe crabs?
Horseshoe crabs. It kind of looks like a horseshoe crab with like longer legs, and that's kind of what is around his face. And it looks like the thing has taken its tail and like shoved it down, like intubated it, and so is keeping him alive but like anesthetized, because he's still alive, he's just unconscious. And they're like, okay, what do we do with this? And they're like arguing on whether or not they want to try to take it off of his face. And they're like, what if we take it off and it kills him? And they're like, well, if it doesn't, it's just going to be here on his face and it'll kill him. So they try to like cut it with like a cautery knife, and it squirts out acid blood, because of course it does. And the acid blood starts to drop through like the ship layers.
Oh no.
And they have to like go chase it. I always thought it would be super inconvenient to have acid blood, because if you ever got nicked on anything, that's just like, that's the whole place. It's just gone in acid.
I feel like the aliens don't so much care though.
Probably true. But these are the things I think about when I watch movies. They managed to stop the acid from going all the way through like the hull of the ship, because obviously that would be bad, because that would open them up to the environment and space. Mm-hmm. And they're like, well, that didn't work. So they put him like back in the med bay, and then they're like, all right, we're gonna think about this logically for a little while before we keep trying to do stuff. And they get the ship off of the rock that they were landed on, and then it redocking with the Nostromo, so everything's kind of connected. And Ripley's really annoyed about the whole thing, because she's like, this is how we all die, and no one is listening to her. And she's like, all right, well, I'm gonna keep trying, but no one's paying attention to me. Like, we should. It also like shoots acid, so when we get this off of him, we need to like send it out the airlock. Like, this is not worth having on the ship. And Ash is like, no, but science, we need to know what it is. And Ripley's like, I'm great out here, thanks. Let's not.
Oh no.
While they're kind of like arguing with what to do, at one point Dallas is like consulting with because the AI has kind of like an AI core that you go talk to it in, and it's like this big room with lights that you like type into a computer and then it'll respond back to you, because it was the 80s and we hadn't really thought of like computers being able to just talk to us on the ship anywhere just yet. He's trying to figure out like why the ships made him stop and that kind of stuff. And he's suspicious that the company that sent them out for the refining mission actually may have sent them out for this alien to like collect samples of this alien. But as he's like starting to figure out some of the clues to this mystery, he gets a call from Ash saying that Kane has woken up. And they're like, what? How did he wake up? And then so they went to go back to see him, and the facehugger is gone, and Kane's awake. I think they find the facehugger. It looks like it had died at some point, and like has like some residual like reactions when you poke it, but it's not like a threat anymore. So they like put it in a box and to be studied later.
That
which
doesn't sound like a good idea.
Right, bad plans. Not a great plan all around. You have much more genre savvy than most of the people in this movie. But Kane himself seems like mostly unharmed. He seems like a little dazed, a little pale, but like he's up, he's talking. He's like, I'm really hungry. I don't really remember going onto the planet. The last thing I remember was we were waking up here. So like it kind of like wiped his memory of like the whole experience. And so they're like, why don't we get you something to eat? We'll chat. We'll figure what's going on after we've sat down for a second. And then we have the infamous the cafe scene where they're all kind of sitting around the cafe. They're talking. Kane just starving, constantly eating. And he all of a sudden just starts to like shake and choke, and it looks like he's struggling to breathe, and then he falls over onto the table, and then a small creature just erupts from his chest and kills him, and then like squirts blood onto the crew and then like runs away. And that's how the aliens reproduce, is by being like this parasite that like takes over your body and then just like hops out of your stomach when right. And I guess when they were filming this scene, the actors only knew like this was the scene the alien was going to first show itself to them. They didn't know it was going to come out of the one actor's chest. Only that actor knew.
Oh,
so
gosh.
like, because Ridley Scott wanted to get their like genuine reactions of horror of what was going on. And I guess when they filmed it right after the scene cuts, the lady who plays Lambert, Veronica Cartwright, she just straight up fainted because she's like, this is a lot. This is too much.
It is a lot.
It is a lot. I would be very shocked having had that just happen to me. So the crew decides to go hunt it, and they decide to use flamethrowers because kill it with fire is a solid response to this kind of thing.
Yeah, I think so.
They start looking for him. One of the engineers has a couple of scenes where he's like searching through some stuff, and there's Sigourney Weaver's character Ripley has a cat named Jones, and he's like the mouser of the ship, and
Cats in space.
He's a good space cat and the best crew member, and he kind of alerts you to when the alien, which is called a Xenomorph, is around. And so Brett is the next one to go because he gets shocked by Jones, who's like hiding from the Xenomorph, and then we see the Xenomorph's like full form take place because we were getting like images of like skin, like a snake shedding its skin, and it was getting bigger and bigger very quickly. And so it's this big, like 7-foot tall, like black oily skin, like long elongated head with like 5 levels of mouths. It's so iconic, but also terrifying. And it kills Brett, and then Dallas ends up in like the airlock because they're trying to try to just straight up eject it from the airlock and like move it through the airlock with flamethrowers, but flamethrowers don't really seem to bug it, and so we lose Dallas pretty quickly after that. And then Lambert is like, all right, it can have the ship, let's just get into the escape pods and go. But Ripley, who based on like senior ranking is now in command, says that the shuttle's not going to support the remaining people, and that they're 10 months from anywhere, so they don't have enough life support to get to wherever they need to go. So they're like, all right, we're going to try to kill it one more time. Ripley goes to the computer to Mother to try to get more information about the Nostromo or the Xenomorph or whatever, while Parker and Lambert start to gather like weapons and whatever they have and supplies to try to figure out a way to kill it. But as Ripley is talking to Mother, Ash shows up and basically admits to being like a plant from the corporation that sent them out here, and ends up trying to attack her and actually tries to choke her to death. And there's like this big fight scene with them through the AI core and then back kind of into the lounge area. And then Parker hears the commotion and comes and like hits Ash on the head and knocks his head loose, and he's actually an android, which no one was expecting.
Oh no, I was not expecting that either.
So he's an evil robot. And there was a conversation earlier where Ripley and Dallas were talking about how they didn't trust Ash, and Ash was like a last minute replacement from the other science officer. So there's like a lot of doubt of like who this guy was, but then him being a robot was like the last, like, what the heck is going on here?
This is the last straw.
This is the last straw. You can't just be a robot. You can't try to murder Ripley and be a robot.
One.
Only one, not both.
Oh no.
So they basically like put his head on a table and they turn him back on, and then they get more information about how they're expendable and the company doesn't really care about them. They just want the xenomorph. It's not really explained why they want the xenomorph. I think it was they wanted to be the first people to make alien contact or something, but like obviously if this thing landed on Earth, that would be a bad thing. But it's neither here nor there. And then the last thing he says is like he apologizes, or he goes like he basically taunts them about their odds of survival being so low. Like he gives them like really crappy statistics. And so Parker just sets his whole body on fire, because that is the appropriate response to an android, is just set it on fire.
Yes. I mean, I guess they have less to be concerned with if he is just an android. Like,
right.
Go ahead and destroy him. It doesn't matter.
Right. And now they don't have to worry about the number of people, because there's 3, and that will get supported on the escape shuttle.
Oh,
so
good.
they plan to self-destruct a Nostromo with the xenomorph on it and then dip. But while Ripley is in the process of activating the self-destruct, the xenomorph finds Parker and Lambert and then kills them while they're getting supplies. So it's literally just Ripley left on this ship. And there's a scene with Ripley right before she like activates. There's like a bunch of security things you have to go through, obviously, because you don't want to just accidentally trip the self-destruct button. And she finds Jones. He like scares her and like moves some boxes, and she thinks it's the alien and ends up being Jones. They use him a lot for like jump scares.
I don't like that.
and then it's just a cat. And in classic, he is definitely a cat. He just watches you die situations where he's just like, all right, cool, deuces, I'm out. I'm a cat.
And I'll eat your body later.
Right. Once you're dead and like seasoned with that acid blood, I'll come back and eat you.
Oh, no.
But Ripley gets Jones, puts him in a carrier. He is not pleased about it. The scene that makes me laugh the most is watching the actor try to put the cat into the carrier, and he's like trying to get his head out. Like, wait, no, I want to be out, like any cat would. And she's like trying to gently push his head down.
This is a real cat, right?
This is a real cat, and they're trying to put him into a carrier, and he is not having it. And like that was the scene they chose. So I can't imagine the amount of times they had to try to take this scene with this cat, trying to get him just into a carrier.
That's amazing.
I was like, cat's gonna cat.
Even in space.
Even in space, cat's gonna cat. She gets him in the carrier and then activates the self-destruct sequence, and then she finds the xenomorph is actually blocking her way to the shuttle, so she tries to cancel the self-destruct, but after, I guess, so it's like 10 minutes to self-destruct, but after 5 minutes, you can't cancel the self-destruct, which seems silly to me, other than the obvious build of suspense and concern.
Yeah.
But she realizes that there's nothing she can do, so she's going to try to confront the xenomorph, but it's gone. So she goes ahead and jumps into the escape pod, and then they fly out of the blast radius of the Nostromo, and it explodes. And so Ripley thinks she's safe, but as she's like getting ready to go and enter stasis, she puts Jones just into his own stasis pod, and she just like lifts him out of the carrier and like drops him directly into the stasis pod and like closes it down really fast. And it's like, all right, stay here. And as she's like getting the space shuttle like to go on to like basically like autopilot, she turns and the xenomorph is just like curled up in a ball, like having snuck onto the ship, and she manages not to startle it and make it aware that she's there, so, and hides along like a row of like spacesuits where she climbs into them. And then there's a like emergency airlock hatch that she throws open and basically like shoots the xenomorph with the decompression from the pressurized area to going into space, and then also has a grappling gun and like shoots it with the grappling gun and like kicks it out into space. And then my favorite scene is this, just the xenomorph, which has been this big scary foreboding monster the whole time, just kind of like floats off into space. And then I think it tries to crawl like around onto the engine, and she activates one of the engines and like incinerates it.
Nice.
And like,
how did that work, but not the flamethrowers earlier?
I think the incinerator was it's higher heat because it's a space incinerator, because it's like the jet propulsion to get you where you need to go.
Okay,
and then
fair.
also that force just like, if it was still alive, like pushed it out into space. And like, even if you can survive in space, there's nothing to grab onto. And then the last scene is Ripley broadcasting a distress signal before she like puts herself into the stasis pod with Jones, and that's the end of the first movie. It's super fun. The guy who is the actor for the actual alien, I guess Ridley Scott met him at a bar, and he was just some rando guy that was 7 feet tall, and he just like walked up and was like, "Hey kid, you want to be in a movie?" And the guy was like, "Sure." And so then they fit him for the suits because he was just so big, and he did such a good job of being scary and like moving in an alien way. So like it couldn't have worked out better, because like the guy, you don't realize it's a guy like actually just in the costume when he's like moving around, because it doesn't feel like it would be. It actually almost feels more like a puppet. And so to know that it's actually a person in there is like, that's some really good visual acting. So
and obviously better than trying to do like special effects or something like that back in the 80s.
Yeah. And that's how it kept from being so like corny and dokey, was because they had like an actual person there like doing most of the special effects. Like, because the whole thing standing, like it does cast a foreboding image, like, and I imagine it would be very terrifying if it was real and staring at you, but it can look a little dorky from certain angles. So they made very sure, like, if it ever had to be at those angles, it was really dark or confusing looking or disorienting, and they always made it look really scary. Space alien.
Yeah. Perfect galaxy.
Perfect galaxy.
Well, nice. Very good. Will you please tell me your quote once again?
I will. I protect the galaxy from the threat of invasion from the evil Emperor Zurg, sworn enemy of the Galactic Alliance.
Oh my goodness. I have no idea.
It's a kid's movie? Does that help?
Guardians of the Galaxy?
No, it's Toy Story.
What?
It's Buzz Lightyear before he realizes he's a toy.
What? Okay, well, I guess I never paid much attention to what he said. Okay.
He protects Buzz Lightyear and his evil enemy, Zurg, Emperor Zurg.
That's right, because in the second Toy Story, doesn't he actually go up against a toy Zurg?
A toy Zurg, yep.
Okay, okay. Yeah, it's all making sense now.
I was like, I knew you knew it. It's been a minute. Generator, what is our next word, please?
The next word is railroad.
Railroad. Choo choo. I guess it's not train, but it could be.
Thank you, Generator.
Oh, thanks, Generator. Your bullet train would have been good for railroad, too.
I know. I also brought the Adventure Zone Murder on the Rockport
You did.
Limited, and I brought Murder on the Orient Express. Didn't I? Did I bring that? No, I haven't brought that one yet.
No.
Maybe.
Spoilers. Maybe spoilers.
Maybe.
I guess you'll have to find out by listening to us next time, huh? I don't know what this voice is. Try to do a transatlantic, and it's not working.
I kind of did. I got it.
Thanks for listening to the podcast. We appreciate you sticking around with us. Feel free to share it with a friend so that we can grow as a podcast. We've been doing this for over a year now, so we'd love to have some more listeners.
Yeah, we have, and our listeners have not grown exponentially like we had so hoped.
Like the pyramid scheme, we keep claiming we are not.
I think maybe 2023 is the year of the pyramid, in that we actually will grow our podcast listeners, but we will still not be a pyramid scheme.
Yep, this is true. She's on to something, folks. We do appreciate you guys sticking around who do listen to us, though. Makes our day. And yeah, I think that's everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, as always, I've been Stephanie.
And I've been Allison.
And remember, it's not a pyramid scheme. Goodbye.
But please help us get more listeners. Okay, bye.
Okay, bye.
Bye.